Hi everyone, I got 2 visitors today. So, on my right, we got Dan. He's a viewer, he's on the Discord a lot, all the time. He doesn't really do YouTube. And this is Chirpy. I've mentioned Chirpy a lot of times. Pretty much always with casting, because I'm doing casting and I say, oh, Chirpy said this, so that's why. But, you might not know, he also does machining, a lot of machining. He's got a lot of awesome machine tools. His lathe is ridiculously awesome. If I could fit it in here and I had like thieving skills, I would totally have it. But they showed up and brought this little mini lathe, and they're thinking they're going to show me how to do some basic stuff to kind of get me started. So we're going to do that today. Hopefully I don't lose a finger. So they brought this Essential Machinery lathe. I think this is like the small one that you can find at Harbor Freight. It's pretty cool. Got a bunch of stuff here to look at. And also, for those of you who keep wondering what happened to the gingery lathe, look at what Chirpy brought. Check it out. These are some of Chirpy's first castings, and he says he doesn't need them anymore because he's already got a massive, awesome lathe. So I'm going to go ahead and use these. I'm going to cast the remaining parts to do some of the scraping. He made me some scrapers, a little bit of carbide brazed on the end of these rods. He showed me, he gave me a quick, very quick 10-second demo on scraping. So that project, despite me not doing much, look, it's half done already, which is pretty great. So I'm going to finish it up the rest of the way and then get to turning some stuff. But before that, we got to figure out how a lathe works.
Alright, so essentially, Paul, what we've got here is as you mentioned, the Harbor Freight. It's Essential Machinery Mini Lathe. It's a 7x10. It's the smallest one, as far as I'm aware, that they make. What's nice about it is that it's nice and small. You can pick it up and move it around. The negative is that it's nice and small and you can move it around. So when you're using it, it can vibrate. The other kind of annoying thing is because the bed is so short, this guy, this is called the tailstock, continues to get in the way. But that's okay, we're not really going to use that today. So we'll just set that right there. Now we have lots and lots of room to move up and down. Since we were traveling here, I actually had the headstock off because the internals is rather precise. You don't want to have a lot of jiggling. So I didn't want this huge, massive weight just kind of hanging on the end here. So Chirpy's already kind of screwed it on by hand, and he reminded me just as we started that it needs to be tightened. And you know, as we're spinning this multiple thousand RPM, we don't want this flying off and losing our fingers on that. So we'll just kind of quickly tighten that up.
Yeah, I've done that a time or two.
So just like when you're doing a car, what I tend to do is I've got these mostly snug. I went around to each one. I don't know if you can see from the angle here, but there's nuts right here. This is what I've been working on, so just kind of tighten that. So now that all 3 of these are tight, what I'm going to do is just kind of grip it with my hand, because again, this is small. You would normally use, you know, put your wrench in and do crazy things, but this is such a small lathe. I just grab it like this and just, you can see I'm moving it just a hair. Because the idea is I wanted it snug, because in here on this faceplate, I'm not sure what that's called, I think that's the faceplate, but there's a ring inside there that this will actually seat up on, and we want that to be as precise as we can make it. So we got that all snugged in, that's in place and ready to go.
Now it's time to go break something.
So now, yep,
now we get to break something, yeah.
So what we have here is a diamond, I don't remember the exact code for this, it gets really complex.
CCMT.
So it's a CCMT, Chirpy's saying. So at Chirpy's workshop, he actually helped me. We modified them. He cut this down on his shaper. So now, it actually will fit into my, this is called a turret style tool holder. And that's because we can put a guy here, we can put a guy here, we can put a guy here, and you just spin it around as you need. So we're going to just place this in here. And I'm just going to tighten that so I don't mess things up as I'm tightening this. But you just take these Allen heads and we're going to tighten it. Now for any of the viewers that might say, well, you should put this back, the way that we had this custom cut, I actually want this more this way. This way it'll hold, it'll be in the right spot. I'm bringing the head back so that we can get this as rigid as we can, and then lining this up will allow me to bring this in to the material, because we'll actually be cutting for facing like this. And then we can come in and actually cut along here. So that's one of the reasons that these angles, if you notice, if we hold it perpendicular, there's actually just a little bit of daylight that runs between it. Just like with the other parts, I'm only doing these hand tight because I don't want to pinch this, bow it. If you offset the pressure, it's possible this head can move a little bit. And not that this is the most precise tool in the world, but, you know, good practice. So I'm not, like, trying to kill it, to use the Paul Grunt scale, but yeah. I'm just kind of, you know, giving it so it's snug, because we don't want that to move.
So you're a 1/8 grunt.
Yeah, 1/8 grunt.
Not quite an audible grunt. I stole that from James May, by the way. That was his torque spec on a motorcycle or something, was half a grunt. There you go. It's perfect.
So now we're ready to actually place material in here. So I've just got this stuff here we were messing around with in Chirpy's workshop. We can, as Paul starts to play with this, you know, you kind of get a feel for cutting in. You'll end up slicing. It's kind of like, think of like a wood chisel, right? It's going to come in and just kind of skim underneath that metal and actually just peel what's called a chip off. I'm going to flip it around this way. Since this is nice and smooth and round, it'll be nice and easy to put into our chuck. Yes, I have a 3-jaw, so I can cheat. It's nice and easy. You just put it in just like a drill bit.
I feel like I should have taken cinematography class for this.
A little tip, when you put it in, turn it as you're tightening it up. Otherwise it'll want to catch on one of the jaws, or between two of the jaws, and it'll...
That's a great tip, actually. So even, not that I have tons of experience at this, but if you come over here, Paul, you can see, because it's 3-jaw, what I tend to do is put it like this, so I lay the piece on top, and then it tightens up into the center. What Chirpy's suggesting, which I've done this myself, is if you put this down a little bit this way, I'm exaggerating for the camera, but as you tighten it, these 2 jaws will actually pinch that and hold it, and you won't even notice, but when you run it, you'll see this piece vibrating. So what he's suggesting is as we tighten this up, we just kind of give it just a little bit of a turn. So as you can see, we know it's centered because it's all between all 3 of these guys, but it's nice and held. I tighten this guy down and go to the next one, tighten this guy down, and then of course go to the last one. And by doing that, if we had a dial indicator here, you'd actually see this slightly out of center, even though we tightened one, but by tightening all 3, it'll actually help bring that in and center it in real well.
Also, the outside of that bar, it might wobble a little bit because it wasn't centered up when we were playing with it.
Right. Yeah, so in this case, if this part wobbles, it's the metal. We really do know what we're doing on this particular portion of the video.
No, we don't.
But,
better than I know. Before this, I've never actually touched a lathe. Like, one of the very first welders that I touched was my welder when I pulled it out of the case. So that was a great start to welding.
So as Chirpy had mentioned, we want to get this lined up. What I had intended to do is show you from this standpoint why that's important. I kind of tried to indicate that before, but you can see I got this loose, but we're actually going to come right in here, and you can see how we just get this little itty bitty bit of room. So if we have it like this, we end up with a lot of problems, because when we come back this way, you can see that now we can't cut this if we're at the wrong angle. So by kind of lining it up perpendicular to our work, it allows us to be able to face, and then we'll be able to pull back and come across here with the proper angles. So now we can just kind of
relief on each side, so that when you go in, it's actually pointed, so you can get into those angles.
Focus!
What were you saying about cinematography classes?
Hey kids, you want to be good at being a cameraman? Don't buy a refurbished one on Amazon. I kid, it works fine, but you got to read the manual to learn how to use these things, and who's got time for that? Look, we're wearing these. Get off my back. Ignore the big burn marks from the other day.
That wasn't on video. It's okay.
Yeah, well, it was. A little blister. Never hurt anybody. Burns.
All right, so at this point, we want to make sure this is off, because we don't want to go forward or reverse at all.
Alrighty.
I have my own little process how I operate this. I don't know if it's the manual or the recommended process, but I find it works. And this machine, we're going to use what's called forward. So that's going to have this turn this way. And again, that's because this cutter here, we're going to turn the metal into the cutter so we can just kind of slice. If this is the actual blade, it's actually going to slice right in like that. So the first thing we want to do is a facing. This is already pretty flat, but just for practice, we'll show. You always want to do at least to me, I always want to do a facing because it cleans up the material. It gives you a nice edge that's very precise, that you can measure things or whatnot. Because sometimes, even when you buy flat stock or round stock that's got a face, it's machined. It's from the factory. It's not necessarily flat. So So Chirpy actually, when I was at his workshop, we put a lock on here. So when you see me over here kind of locking or wrenching stuff, that's actually because we're going to move the carriage slide more or less in a position so the tool bit touches. So again, we've got that little chisel piece, and we've got the front face of the metal. We're actually going to just bring that in. We're going to barely kiss it, just touch it. And that's because with the way the compound is set up now, we'll be able to feed in by using our top slide. Well, this is the top and this is the cross. We're going to feed, you're right, you're going to feed into the material.
Slide, yeah.
Technical terms, sorry, warning. By positioning the entire carriage so that just kisses, then we just kind of lock it in place. So we'll let Paul kind of do that. He can visually see, move that right in.
All right.
And just get it to kiss. You don't want to grind on it, but it's just going to touch. Yep.
You usually do this while it's running.
Well,
so that's just
trying
touching.
to walk them through so we don't snap bits off yet. But yeah, Chirpy's absolutely right. Once we get to that point, we'll do this again by while it's running, because you want to get it so that you just touch it. So you're that close.
Yep.
Now we're going to get the half-inch guy, and by just kind of holding this guy still, because again it's running, we're just going to take over here on the lock. Just should be a quarter turn. It may be a little loose from traveling, but you'll feel it. Just tighten it up. Just
right there.
Give it a good.
It's just
so just give it a snug.
Just snug.
Yep, there you go. So like a tenth of a grunt on that one.
All right, 1/10.
So that's So that's good. And then essentially at this point we'd be able to start cutting. This entire process we just walked through, that's what you would do with this running, and then we would operate by moving this guy back and forth to come in to the diameter, well, across the diameter of the face, right? And then to actually move the tool in, that's what we use the top slide for. So this way you'll see, if we turn this, it's, we're kind of coming right into it. So
yeah.
Now this has been Chirpy eyes, so it's a little stiff right now, and that's okay. Again, we're going to repeat that process. We can just loosen this guy a little bit. We'll draw this back away because personally I don't like starting with the carbide next to this. It tends to make it unhappy.
If there's a burr from cutting it off or something, it'll actually hit that carbide like a hammer. So you want to go up to it
slowly. Yep, come into it. On this particular guy, you'll see that there's two scales. There's a boxed number and a non-boxed number. That's the low speed, so 200 RPM when this dial is all the way down to nothing. It's not 200. I'm not sure if the camera can see, but over here I got a little piece of tape, one of those cheap Chinese just measurement, and it tells you the RPM of stuff. It's like 110 or something. But on the high end, this 2900, it's really close. It's like 2780 or something like that, if you believe the meter, of course. I don't really run in high speed, and that lever's back here. So you can see, your viewers can't, but there's a lever here. If you turn it this way, it's high speed, this way is low speed, so we're already in low. And then we just kind of make sure, because as you flip this in and out, you have to make sure everything's engaged, so I just kind of spin it a little. There's another lever back here. This guy engages our lead screw. And that lead screw is used for threading and automatic feeding and things like that. But we're not doing that, so we're going to leave that alone. It's already set to neutral. So
one thing to think of before this, pull off your ring.
Oh yeah, rings off.
Yeah, you don't want any jewelry or anything like that can get caught.
No gloves. Use your fingers. It's okay to get oil on your fingers. It's not going to kill you.
That'll be the least dangerous thing I got on my fingers so far. I had a cut here. Phosphoric acid is the most painful thing to get in a cut.
That's awesome.
Acetone hurts real bad, but it's nothing like etch spray phosphoric acid. That's smarts. And it tastes terrible. Don't drink it.
It tastes terrible. So now from my perspective, Chirpy, jump in if you think the numbers should be different. But what I tend to do is I like to set this for steel with carbide, somewhere in the middle-ish. I mean, there's probably guides and things you can follow, but
1 inch, I'd go probably 600 RPM.
So 600 RPM. So that's probably here-ish. I mean, you're talking 200, 3,000, divide, math, and sure, that's about the right spot. We'll apply. We've already got the magic pixies coming into the wire. So now we can apply our red switch, which will juice it up. And then when we're ready to start moving, pop that to forward, which is this rotation. And that's the chip tray. We should put that under to keep your bench somewhat clean.
Yeah, chip tray to keep the bench somewhat clean. That's a funny joke.
For anyone familiar with this, before you comment in the comments, there is a guard here. I didn't bring it with me. It had to be portable, and I drove, what were we at, Chirpy? 1,400 miles to be here, so yeah, it's okay if we just fling some of the stuff.
He didn't just do that to see me. He came to see a bunch of people on a trip.
This is one thing you'll learn when you use a lathe. It'll speak to you. I mean, it's not going to say, "Hey, I'm broke," but it'll make weird noises. It'll chatter. I don't have the example here right next to me, but you can see when the tool bit's chattering, it'll make these really cool, really pretty-looking patterns. It's a bad thing, but the patterns look really cool. So we're going to see. We'll run this. It seems okay. I'm going to leave this off. Don't tell OSHA, and we'll run.
That's the least terrifying thing to OSHA in this garage. Okay, here we go.
So hit forward. Yep. And just move it in until it starts to kiss. And you'll hear it. It'll make a very distinct sound when it touches. There you go. Yep. Lock it in place.
Lock it in.
And we're going to back off this the cross slide the other way. So just keep pulling it back. It's okay if it touches. All right. So now we want to feed this guy maybe what? So half a turn. Yep. Stop. And then start feeding this guy in.
This way.
And it's okay. Just it'll start making vibrations and just pull right in. When you get to about the center, stop. We're going to turn him a little bit more.
Turn this guy.
Just turn it, and you'll feel it start to push into you. There you go. Yep, keep going. Okay, so this is something new to me. I'm learning as well. So this particular type of insert, Chirpy's saying you don't want to feed in, we want to feed out. So I back this way off.
Feed out, feed in.
Yep. So we want to back. Yep.
Okay, and now feed it in.
Yep. Now feed it so it's. There you go. And then just take your time. There you go. That's much better. See, that's why we keep Chirpy around. He knows all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah.
Alright, so you can just back it out. Don't move this guy. Don't move this guy at all. Just back it out. Because there's slack in there.
Okay.
You want to keep it precise. So normally you would want this bolted down. You can see it's maybe vibrating a little. Again, we had to make it portable.
And then turn it in a little
so
more.
You can go some more. Yep.
Like that?
Sure. Again, I'm learning this particular setup myself, so. There you go. That's much better. That's much better. And you can see as we're going through, you're getting that nice little line where it's cutting, and you can even see the tool is shiny in there, so we got a really nice cut. That's a good face. So now for me, red button. Nope, red button.
It's a nice facing cut.
So that's your first cut, yeah.
Cool.
I don't know if you wanted to get in and take a nice, good shot.
Pretty much as far in as this thing will go.
Okay.
Cool, though.
Yeah, good job on that, Paul. Good job.
Cool. The lathe did the work. It's fine.